I never expected my son to speak to me that way. Dad, pack your things. You've got 1 hour. Move out today. The words cut sharper than any knife I've held in my life. But little did he know, I was already one step ahead. The night before, I had quietly reorganized everything. My legal documents, my accounts, every paper proving that this house, my house, was mine. All the defenses were quietly in place. I was folding the last towel when Avery stormed in. The air seemed to crackle around her steps, each one sharp enough to cut. She didn't look at me, didn't even glance in my direction. Instead, her eyes locked on the basket in my hands like it carried some kind of contamination. And then she struck. The side of her hand collided with the basket, sending clothes, towels, shirts, and socks tumbling across the floor like debris after an explosion. "Pack your bags," she said, her voice icy, triumphant. 1 hour, today." I stayed still, calm, even though my heart was hammering. I'd survived storms like this before, though none quite like this one. Then Luke stepped forward, his arms crossed, eyes flat, emotionless in the way my son never had been before. "Where to?" he said, a low, dismissive snort escaping him. "Maybe a grave for leeches like you." The words landed, but they didn't shake me. I'd been underestimated all my life. What they didn't know was that I had already secured my house, my assets, and the proof that I was far from powerless. Avery circled me like a predator, her voice dripping with venom. "You've leeched off us long enough," she spat. "Your smell, your age, it drags everything down. Even the kids avoid you. You've slowed this house for far too long." I had lived decades being useful. I had spent my life working, fixing things, making life smoother for everyone around me. I had raised my son, sent him to college, supported him when his mother couldn't. And now, this was the thanks I received? Lies told with confidence can cut deep, but they do not define reality. She waved her hand at me theatrically, like I was a piece of furniture. "You're lucky we tolerated you this long. Most people know when to leave before ruining everything." I could feel my hands tremble, not from fear, but from disbelief at the ease with which cruelty was wielded. The betrayal wasn't just in their words, it was in their tone, practiced, deliberate. Every insult had been prepared, every jab rehearsed, and yet I remained calm. I had already started building my defense, quietly, meticulously. A week ago, I noticed Luke claiming the mailbox key, Avery manipulating the mail, hiding my statements. A few days later, strange charges appeared on my accounts, $900 here, $450 there, transactions I had never authorized. And then came the cameras, small, hidden, recording every act, every word. The truth was quietly collecting itself, while they believed I was fading, irrelevant, invisible. I picked up the first recordings that night. Avery manipulating my medication, Luke pushing his own son, whispering instructions in secret, plans to make me appear incapable, to erase my rights, to take the home I had built. The betrayal was almost artful, the malice methodical. But I had seen storms come and go. I had survived the ones that could have broken a lesser man. And I knew this, the storm they thought would destroy me had instead brought clarity. As I sat there in the dim light, listening to their plotting and witnessing their cruelty through hidden eyes and ears, something settled inside me. Not fear, not anger, something colder, something sharper, resolve. They had underestimated me, and now it was time to see how far their plans would really go. I had always believed that patience was a weapon, but I never realized just how powerful it could be until that night. The house was quiet now, the kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, it sharpens. I could hear the faint hum of the heater,
the tick of the old clock on the wall, and the slow, methodical steps of my enemies as they believed I was asleep. But I wasn't asleep. I was watching. I was listening. I was planning. I moved slowly, carefully. My hip protested, reminding me that age slows the body but never the mind. My hand brushed against the edge of the sofa where I had spent countless hours reading, thinking, waiting. That was where I realized something essential. If they thought my silence meant weakness, they were about to learn the cost of underestimating a man who had survived far worse storms. I checked the cameras I had installed weeks ago, disguised in lamps, picture frames, and even in a hollowed-out figurine. The first clip played automatically. Avery, deliberate, precise, placing my medication on the top shelf. Her words were quiet, but every intention was crystal clear. Make him struggle, confuse him, break him. The next clip, Luke, my own son, raising his hand against his own child in a fit of impatience, a child who barely understood why his grandfather, the man who had built this family, was suddenly the enemy. "Stop defending him," Luke snapped. "Don't get in the way." I felt a chill run through my chest, not from fear, not from pain, but from clarity. They believed they could manipulate, coerce, and erase me without consequence. I spent the next hour scrolling through every recording, every whispered plot, every carefully staged lie. They had started early, mail disappearing, accounts tampered with, forged signatures being practiced in secret. And yet, every move, every deceit had been captured, every act of malice was recorded. For a moment, I simply sat back and breathed. Years of being underestimated, ignored, and written off as too old, too slow, too weak had led me here. I was no longer the man who folded towels silently while the world passed him by. I was the man who could turn hidden cameras, stolen moments, and whispered secrets into proof, evidence, justice. And that's when it hit me. The power wasn't in the yelling, the threats, or the cruelty. It was in knowledge, in quiet observation, in the unshakable fact that what they were doing, every act of betrayal, every manipulation, was documented. The house that they believed they could control, the family they believed they could dominate, the old man they thought they could erase, none of it was theirs, not legally, not morally, not ever. I set my jaw, feeling the old strength settle into my shoulders. My hands, though slightly shaken from age and the adrenaline of discovery, were steady enough to hold the tablet that contained the proof of their schemes. Avery believed that taking my freedom, my home, and my dignity would be easy. She had rehearsed this, polished it like a victory lap. Luke believed he could keep the secrets, protect his mistress, and still walk away unscathed. But both of them had forgotten one rule. Cruelty may succeed in the dark, but it cannot survive the light. I began planning the next steps, slowly, methodically. The recordings would be organized. The forged documents would be exposed. The truth would not just whisper, it would roar. That night, as I lay in my old chair, looking at the ceiling, I felt a strange sense of calm. Not resignation, not fear, but resolve. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. And it was mine. Because while they thought they were erasing me, I had already started rewriting the ending. The morning light crept through the blinds, cutting thin lines across the floor like the countdown of a clock I had stopped long ago. But today I wasn't counting down. Today I was counting up, the moments until justice finally caught up with them. I stood in the kitchen, tablet in hand, reviewing the recordings again. Each clip a testament to their greed, their cruelty, their complete underestimation of me. Avery moving my medication, Luke forging my signature, whispered plots about selling my home and declaring me incompetent. All of it laid bare, and for the first time I felt a grin creep across my face, not from malice, but from clarity. They believed they were untouchable. They believed that because I had slowed down, because my body had aged, because I had stayed silent for so long, I had no power left. But they had forgotten something essential. I had a lifetime of resilience, a lifetime of survival, and now, finally, the proof. I started by organizing every recording, every email, every document they had manipulated. The forged signatures, the locked doors, the hidden cameras, it all fit together like a puzzle. And when I finished, I realized something important. Their arrogance had built a perfect map for my defense. I called Evelyn March first. Her voice on the phone was calm, steady, reassuring, the kind of voice that carries authority without raising it. "Everything is in order," I said simply, feeling my pulse steady. "They won't see this coming." Her response was soft but confident. "Good. Let's make sure this is untouchable. Full legal protection. Your home, your assets, and every record they tried to manipulate." By the afternoon, I had begun setting the stage, letters prepared, evidence organized, every recording time-stamped, every fraudulent document highlighted. I even double-checked my hidden cameras, making sure nothing had been missed. I knew Avery and Luke would assume I was powerless, as I often had for years. They would never expect the quiet man in the corner, the old man they thought fading, to rise with the weight of truth behind him. When they returned home that evening, I was waiting. Not angry, not pleading, calm. Every step I took into the living room, measured, deliberate. I placed the tablet in front of them, the screen open, displaying the first clip, Avery's deliberate placement of my medication. Her eyes widened, her smile faltering. Luke's hand tightened into a fist, but he said nothing. My voice, quiet but unshakable, broke the silence. "This is the beginning. Every act you've tried to hide, every lie, every manipulation is here, and it's about to speak louder than either of you ever could." I didn't shout. I didn't need to. The gravity of the moment sank in. Their confidence, built over months of plotting, began to crumble with each clip. The whispers, the manipulations, the petty cruelty, all exposed. The table that was meant to hold my final decision now held their undoing. Avery tried to laugh it off, but the sound cracked. Luke's eyes darted, searching for some escape, but there was none. They had underestimated the quiet man who had always been present, who had always observed, who had never truly been powerless. That night, as I walked through my home alone, I felt something rare and powerful. Control. Not over them, but over my life. For the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel invisible. I felt alive. And I knew, without a doubt, that tomorrow their arrogance would meet consequences. Their plot, meticulously crafted, would collapse under the weight of truth. For the first time, I slept without fear, not because the danger was gone, but because I had found the weapon they never saw coming, the quiet strength of someone they thought powerless. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and authority, the kind of place that swallows lies and pretends nothing else exists. I walked in slowly, each step measured, every breath steady. People stared, some curious, some sympathetic, but I didn't care. I was here for one thing, the truth to be heard, undeniable and unshakable. Luke and Avery were already seated, their faces masks of false confidence. They thought they had rehearsed this enough to fool everyone. They believed they were untouchable, but I had spent years watching them, listening, documenting. Today, the silence that had kept me small became my loudest weapon. The judge entered, and the room fell into a hushed reverence. Avery's hands twitched nervously. Luke avoided eye contact, his shoulders slumping slightly as if the weight of months of deceit were already pressing on him. When my turn came, I rose, calm, collected. Every document I had painstakingly gathered was now before me. Recordings, emails, forged signatures, video evidence of manipulation and cruelty. I handed the first file to the clerk, and then I looked directly at Avery and Luke. "You built this house on lies," I said softly, letting my words land like stones. Every manipulation, every act of deception, every attempt to erase me, documented, recorded, witnessed. Avery scoffed, trying to mask panic, but her voice trembled. Luke shifted uneasily, caught between defending himself and realizing there was no escape. I played the first clip. Avery deliberately putting my medication on the top shelf, far out of reach. Luke instructing her, plying behind my back. The courtroom watched, silent but attentive, as the cruel reality unfolded. Every whisper, every lie, every act of abuse laid bare. The judge leaned forward, scanning the evidence, listening carefully. The weight of truth settled heavily in the room. This wasn't speculation, this wasn't rumor, this was proof, cold, hard, undeniable. Avery tried to interrupt, shouting over me, but the bailiffs held her back. Luke muttered excuses, then tried to deflect blame, but the recordings didn't lie. The judge's eyes narrowed, focusing on the facts, not the performance they had prepared so meticulously. Hours passed, each clip reinforcing the story of exploitation, manipulation, and betrayal. And with each revelation, I felt something rise inside me. Not anger, not vengeance, but a steady, quiet power. The power of truth. Finally, the judge spoke. Every word landed with precision, carving justice into the silence. For the deliberate exploitation of an elder, for forgery, for coercion, and for the emotional and financial harm inflicted, this court finds Luke Turner guilty. Sentence 6 to 10 years in state prison. Mrs. Avery Dalton Turner, you are found complicit in this abuse. Custody of the children will be transferred immediately to a safe guardian, and your access is revoked pending further review. A hush fell over the room. Avery's face went pale, lips trembling. Luke sagged into his chair, the weight of his arrogance collapsing like a house of cards. I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. Justice had arrived, not in a sudden roar, but in deliberate, undeniable steps. The quiet strength I had relied on for decades had finally spoken louder than their deceit. As they were led away, I watched them, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with understanding. They had underestimated me, just as the world often underestimates those who move quietly, those who age gracefully, those who survive in silence. When the courtroom emptied, I remained for a moment, savoring the stillness. My home, my life, my dignity protected. My family, my true family, safe. And I realized something essential. Silence never surrenders. Silence observes. Silence waits. And when the time is right, silence speaks louder than any scream. For the first time in months, I stepped outside, breathed the winter air, and felt it fill me completely. Freedom, safety, and truth, the three things they tried to steal but could never take. Spring arrived quietly, brushing the world with soft green and golden sunlight. I opened the cabin door and felt the air stretch into every corner of my chest. It smelled of pine, earth, and freedom, the kind of freedom you can't feel until years of weight are lifted from your shoulders. The children arrived that afternoon, their laughter spilling into the small cabin like sunlight dancing on walls. Evan ran first, arms wide, tumbling into mine without hesitation. Chloe followed, shy at first, then grinning as she tucked herself into my side. Their joy was effortless, unguarded, and for the first time it was safe. I held them tightly, feeling their trust anchor me in ways I hadn't realized I needed. I looked around the cabin, at the quilts Rose had helped me make, the wooden carvings we had shaped together, the soft rugs that muffled every step. Everything felt alive, as though the walls themselves remembered care and kindness, not fear and cruelty. I spent the days rebuilding a rhythm I had lost long ago. Mornings began with the hum of birds and the gentle tapping of squirrels racing along the roof. I tended to the small garden outside, each sprouting seed a reminder that life continues even after betrayal. I cooked meals slowly, savoring every stir of the pot and every careful slice, teaching the children the small rituals of care I had carried for decades. Evenings were quiet, except for laughter, storytelling, and the soft whisper of wind through the pines. I no longer flinched at raised voices or scheming glances. No locked doors could keep me out now. No false smiles or whispered lies could touch me. My life was mine, uninterrupted, unthreatened, fully present. I sometimes thought back to the courtroom, to the faces of Avery and Luke, the arrogance, the cruelty, the blind certainty that they could erase me. It was almost remarkable, in a cold way, how thoroughly they had underestimated the power of observation, patience, and quiet endurance. They had thought I was fading, irrelevant, invisible, but I had survived, and surviving had sharpened something inside me, a clarity, a steadiness, and a courage that no deceit could dismantle. At night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars emerge one by one. The children were asleep inside, safe and sound, and I felt a sense of calm I hadn't known in years. My heart was steady, my mind clear. I had reclaimed more than just a house. I had reclaimed myself, my dignity, and my peace. I smiled softly, thinking of the life I had quietly built, the love I had quietly given, and the strength I had quietly held. Nothing could take that from me, not threats, not betrayal, not time itself. I had learned that silence, patience, and steadfastness carry a power all their own. And in that quiet cabin, surrounded by trust, warmth, and the gentle rhythm of life, I finally understood what freedom truly meant. Freedom was not just surviving the storm, it was feeling sunlight on your face after the tempest, knowing that you had endured, that you had won, and that your life was once again your own. For the first time in decades, I was not just alive, I was fully, completely, unshakably free. If this story moved you, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that inspire and touch the heart. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing where you're watching from and what story inspired you most. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new story of courage, justice, and resilience. Thank you for being here, and remember, even in silence, strength speaks loudest.